in the game from time to time.
Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of Coming Soon. This week we're going to be talking about one of the biggest games of the year and a fan favorite, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Now, just like I did with my last episode of Coming Soon, I'm going to discuss an overview of the game, including story, gameplay, multiplayer, extras, and systems, before moving on to my predictions about the game, what the community is saying about the game, and wrap it up with my final thoughts. Metal Gear Solid 5 is due out September 1st, 2015 for consoles, and September 15th, 2015 for Windows via Steam, so let's talk a little bit about it, starting with the story. The story for the game takes place 9 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, placing it in 1984, 11 years before the original Metal Gear game. The game starts off with Snake, or Big Boss, in a hospital bed coming into consciousness after being in a coma. A nurse soon realizes he's awoken and goes to find a doctor who informs Snake that he's been in a coma for the past 9 years. During this time, Snake finds out that his left arm has been removed and replaced with a prosthetic hook, presumably after the plane crash at the end of Ground Zeroes. Snake then encounters a character named Ishmael who injects him with some digoxin, I think is how you say it, so that Snake can regain his motor functions and escape the hospital. During the escape, they encounter a child wearing a gas mask who is speculated to be Psycho Mantis, an enemy from Metal Gear Solid, who immediately levitates through the ceiling as an elevator explodes and violently throws Snake and Ishmael to the floor. The two then manage to escape and commandeer an ambulance, which they end up crashing, and as Snake crawls through the wreckage, he is once again faced with the gas mask wearing child, who summons a humpback whale demon, which engulfs a nearby chopper which is headed toward them. Finally, Ocelot rescues Snake, and the two ride off on horseback, while Snake shoots a fiery demon riding a flame-winged unicorn. No bullshit. Which makes sense in the context of the story, because if you didn't play Metal Gear Solid 1, Psycho Mantis is a very strong psychokinetic, and he has telepathy, so he can kind of mess with Snake's mind, so it makes sense. After some time has passed, and Snake has apparently recovered from his muscle atrophy, he and Ocelot travel to Afghanistan. When they get there, Ocelot informs Snake that Miller has been taken captive and it's up to Snake to rescue him. Ocelot then leaves Snake, and Snake heads off to find Miller, who's had his right arm and left leg amputated during his captivity. Other than that, there's not much information out about the story. There's a bit of information about two of your prospective partners, however, those being D-Dog and Quiet, as well as who I assume is the main antagonist of the game, Skullface. D-Dog is apparently a dog that was rescued by Snake and was raised by Ocelot, and is cute as hell when he's a puppy, named Diamond Dog after their private military company. Quiet, on the other hand, is a deadly sniper unable to speak for unknown reasons, and possesses the ability to become invisible. She can also be an ally to Snake, which can be seen in the E3 2015 gameplay demo. She may also have an affiliation to Skullface, due to his master plan, which we'll discuss in a moment, as well as this scene. With some girls who have very similar demeanors and abilities to Quiet. Skullface is still a pretty mysterious character, even though we did get a bit of information about his background during Ground Zeroes. Skullface is of Hungarian descent, and when his parents' factory was bombed, he was trampled in the aftermath by a mob of civilians trying to escape. He sustained significant injuries during the chaos, including being doused by burning oil. His medical condition was critical, and he was left with dramatic deformities as well as nerve damage, which rendered him unable to feel pain. He eventually became a commander of the XOF, but not much else is known about him. In one of the trailers, it also states that Skullface has a motivation of ridding the world of speech, which we can assume is his overall goal.
America is a country of liberty, a meeting of immigrants. Instead of simply assimilating, its citizens live alongside others. So the Major sought a system that used information, words, to control the subconscious.
In his eyes, the greatest symbiotic parasite the world's ever known isn't microbial. It's linguistic. Words are what keeps civilization, our world, alive. Free the world, not by taking men's lives, but by taking their tongues.
Pro Snake's new abilities.
On a final story note, I'd like to point out that Snake, or Big Boss, has what seems to be a piece of metal lodged in his forehead, which is presumably also from the plane crash that caused Snake's coma. But during the hospital sequence, it's very difficult to tell if it's in his head since his head's all bandaged up, but it is something to be aware of. And that is pretty much all I have for the story, so let's move on to the gameplay. The biggest change in terms of gameplay that fans may not have been expecting in this game is the transition to an open world setting. And while it's true that this game is open world, don't think of it like Skyrim where there's one big continuous open world, but more like Dragon Age Inquisition where there's multiple locations that offer a different environment. And while previous installments have always had the player constantly within the enemy's territory, in this game you're allowed to choose when you enter into enemy controlled areas and can leave at any time. With this new open world concept comes new methods of travel, including vehicles and horses. Enemy vehicles can be stolen from hostile areas and driven around, as well as vehicles such as the D-Walker Buddy. These, along with the D-Horse, make traversing the environment much quicker. The game also features dynamic weather, as well as a realistic passage of time, which can be manipulated with the Phantom Cigar, which Snake carries in his inventory. Stealth and gunplay will work very similar to how they did in Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. Enemies who are suspicious of Snake while he's sneaking around will display an indicator which appears on the player's screen, notifying them that the enemy thinks there's something there. And if they completely notice Snake, the player will see an exclamation point above their head with the classic Metal Gear Solid detection sound. If you are noticed and you do not take the enemy out in time to secure your secrecy, or another enemy finds a body of an enemy you've taken out, an alarm will begin to sound. If this happens, you'll have to listen to enemy radio chatter to gauge how long until they've calmed down. As for gunplay, the game is a third-person shooter, with the option to switch to first-person for aiming. Weapons being fired from a distance will have a bullet drop mechanic, which will of course make longer-range shots more difficult. Fortunately, distance notches have been added to the targeting reticle, which will allow players to better judge their shots. Weapons will be selected with the D-pad with quick presses allowing for quick selections, and holding down giving you a larger selection. When using close quarters combat, Snake will have 3 options which allow him to interrogate, knock out, or kill the guards. Interrogation will allow Snake to pull out his knife, which can result in the player obtaining information from the soldier, such as ammo or secret passage locations, which will be marked on the map. Also, whenever grabbing a soldier or walking over their bodies, you'll automatically acquire their ammunition. Another component to the gameplay is the building up of your base. This will allow the player to build their base through means of the Fulton recovery system. You can see it being done here.
He speaks Russian. What we need is an interpreter. The main principle of intelligence work is intel gathering.
Side-op completed. Extraction arrived at Mother Base.
Boss, that language
Unit
specialist you
function
extracted has
added.
been very cooperative. Says he's always dreamed of living a free life, like folks in the West. What are the odds, huh? I've gone ahead and placed him in the support unit. His job is Russian interpretation. Now you'll know what Soviet soldiers are saying. You can even interrogate them. Should give you an edge in the mission.
And with that action of extracting him, you have gained the ability to translate Russian so that you can now better understand what the people in the region are saying. The base system has also been expanded upon, which will now allow players to walk around and take part in various activities, such as shooting ranges, CQC with soldiers, interacting with various soldiers, and even participating in base defense when Mother Base is attacked. Online functionality has also been added to the base, which will let players visit friends' bases and walk around. Another old gameplay element which is getting a makeover in the series is the iconic cardboard box. This item will be crafted by Mother Base's R&D unit and can function in multiple ways. The box can be mobile covered, just as it has been in past games, of course, but it can now also be used as a pop-up function, which works like this.
Such as the ability to pop out, take enemies out, and hide back in the box.
Or be used with a discard function, which works like this.
And when you're in trouble, you can even vacate the box and use it as a decoy when it draws the attention of the enemy.
Finally, the use of an on-screen minimap has been removed in favor of the all-new iDroid device. This was seen in Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, and functions mainly as the menu screens for the game. Note that going into these menus does not, however, pause the game. You can also use the iDroid in conjunction with your Android and iOS mobile devices, should you so choose. Multiplayer for Metal Gear Online and The Phantom Pain will feature an online player versus player competitive mode for teams of up to 16 players on PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4, and a max of 12 players on previous-gen consoles. And in the trailer released for the game's multiplayer, we can see the return of Team Sneak, which is a mode that has one team infiltrating the base of another. The team on the offensive will have the use of stealth, tranquilizer guns, and non-lethal support weapons in hopes of securing the target, while the defending team will have the use of lethal weapons to keep the target in their possession. For extras, I think I'm going to take this time to talk about the microtransactions that are confirmed to be in the game. Now, this is something that is going to scare a bunch of people away, which is totally understandable, but to take a direct quote from Konami's E3 2015 developer gameplay demo.
Before we begin, I'd like to quickly address a concern that's been brought up by the media recently about microtransactions in the game. While it is true that a few microtransaction options do exist, the entire game has been carefully balanced to be fair and enjoyable with or without using these options. There's no pay-to-win option. Rest assured that every single item, weapon, and mission in the game is available to all players without paying a single cent.
You notice there's something...
He then goes on to say that these microtransactions will be used mainly for people who are on a tighter time schedule and won't be able to dedicate as much time to the game, so I'm assuming you can pay for these weapons or these items, or you can get them naturally, but he doesn't exactly specify what is going to be sold in these microtransactions. Personally, I don't like this at all. Microtransactions in a game you've already paid full price for, it just seems greedy to me no matter how you slice it. Even if the transactions don't affect me personally, I still see them as a ploy to get money off fans, which I don't like. However, given that they address these transactions directly and stated that they would not affect the average player, I don't see a huge problem with them, but it's kind of hard to say just how big of a part of the game they're going to be until the game actually releases. This game will be releasing on the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3 on September 1st, 2015, and for Windows on September 15th, 2015 via Steam. The Xbox One and PlayStation 4 systems both have collector's editions, but neither the Xbox nor the PlayStation seem to have any kind of content-exclusive deals that I saw for this game. For predictions, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen in this game. To be honest, I'm not that familiar with this series, having only played Metal Gear Solid 4, which I believe takes place in like 2016 or something like that, so it really doesn't even have any bearing on this story, which takes place in 1984, so they're really not that directly correlated. So playing that game really gives me no kind of information about what's going to happen in this game. I also played Ground Zeroes, but that was a very short kind of prelude into this game, and it really didn't give me any kind of information as to what's going to happen in this next game. So I really don't have that much information about the story that I can kind of predict on it. In terms of marketing, I think that microtransactions is going to hurt them more than it helps them in the long run, because I think that people who are heavily into these Metal Gear Solid games are willing to dedicate the necessary time to kind of get all these items, and thus that makes microtransactions irrelevant, which really only offers them bad publicity in my opinion. So I think microtransactions are hurting them a little bit more than they're going to help them in the long run, but I could be wrong on that. For predictions on the story, the only one that I can really even make is that the little boy that you saw in the hospital is probably Psycho Mantis, because I heard that Psycho Mantis was born in 1970, I think, was when he was born. And if he was born in 1970, this game takes place in 1984, which would put him around the age of 14. I know Psycho Mantis was like 30 when he died, I think, like something like that, but it puts him in the necessary age bracket to kind of correlate him in this story, so that makes sense. Or there may be somebody that's exactly like him, like a twin or something like that. But anyways, that's pretty much the only predictions that I can make for this game. For the community's outlook on the game, it's pretty much what you'd expect it to be. There's a lot of love from fans of the series who can't wait to play this game when it releases. Then, of course, there's a lot of hate for the microtransactions and their inclusion in the game. People fighting over the superiority of their respective consoles of choice, as always. And then there's some people mad at the whole Konami versus Kojima debacle that's been going on here lately. Alright guys, and that is pretty much all that I have for you today. Let me wrap this up with my final thoughts. And my final thoughts are, if you love Metal Gear Solid, then you're probably really going to enjoy this game. It's probably going to be your game of the year. It seems like it's going to have a ton of gameplay. There's going to be side missions and stuff like that. And very exciting new characters such as Skullface and Quiet, intermingling with some of your old favorite characters. And if you're really not a very big fan of Metal Gear Solid, you haven't experienced the franchise, or you just don't like it, then you may want to check out Ground Zeroes first to kind of gauge your enjoyment level with these stealthy sorts of games like this. And if you do enjoy that, then you're probably going to enjoy this. It's definitely going to be very, very similar. And if you do not enjoy that, and it is not based solely on your enjoyment level because of the length of it, then you're probably not going to like this because it is very similar, like I said. Alright, and that is pretty much all that I have for you guys today. I hope I was able to help you out with your decision about this game, opening your eyes either one way or the other. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. The next game I'll probably be doing this with is Super Mario Maker, and if you're interested in that, then stick around. If you are unaware, I put these episodes up exactly 1 month before the game releases, so Super Mario Maker releases on September 11th, 2015. The episode will go up on August 11th, 2015. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you on my next video.